Hi, my name is Alexis, and I'm 33. Recently, I emerged from one of the most challenging periods of my life, and I'm here to share that journey with you. My story begins with my former husband, Russell, and his mother, Lori. Russell and I met in college and felt an instant connection, which soon blossomed into a relationship. After 5.5 years together, we got married. Our bond was strong, but from the start, Lori cast a shadow over it. She made it clear she didn't approve of me and rarely missed an opportunity to criticize or insult me. Her remarks hit especially hard because of my insecurities about my appearance, but I found comfort in believing that Russell loved me for who I truly was. 3 years into our marriage, I left my job to start a business with my best friend. It was a bold decision, but Russell supported it fully. The venture started slowly, yet it eventually became very successful, allowing us to live comfortably. However, even with this success, Lori's attitude toward me remained the same. She ignored my accomplishments and even accused me of trying to undermine her son. Russell's silence during her insults added strain to our relationship and sparked frequent arguments. I felt he never stood up for me, which created a growing rift between us. Things took a dark turn when I discovered that Lori was trying to set Russell up with other women. I stumbled across a text conversation on Russell's phone filled with disparaging remarks about me. Initially, Russell resisted his mother's meddling, but over time, he began to show interest in the women she introduced him to. Hurt and shaken, I planned to confront him about it the next day. But that day, something unexpected happened. On my way to work, I was in a car accident. One moment I was on the road, and the next, I awoke in a hospital bed to the sounds of machines and the concerned faces of nurses. My head pounded, and I felt an overwhelming thirst. I asked for water, then drifted back into a restless sleep, hoping the pain would subside. When I tried to shift my legs for comfort, I realized with horror that they wouldn't move. Panic set in as I frantically called for a nurse and explained my inability to feel my legs. The doctor ran some tests and later delivered devastating news: I was paralyzed. Russell, who had entered the room briefly, left soon after, likely overwhelmed. Alone, I struggled to process this life-altering reality. The doctor, sensing my distress, reassured me that there was still a chance for recovery, though it would be a slow and demanding journey. That faint glimmer of hope offered me something to hold on to amid the despair. Determined to recover, I listened carefully as the doctor emphasized the importance of nutrition, rest, and physical therapy. Shortly afterward, the nurses filled me in on the details of the accident. I'd been hit at an intersection by a driver under the influence, which caused severe injuries, including spinal cord damage, a broken collarbone, and facial bruises. I was shocked to learn I'd been in a coma for 2 weeks. Knowing that the driver had been caught brought a small sense of justice, though it didn't lessen the pain or frustration I felt. After eating and taking medication, I fell into a deep sleep. When I awoke, the room was quiet, and I noticed my mom resting in a nearby chair. Startling her awake, we shared an emotional reunion, filled with tears and relief. Her presence was a huge comfort, a reminder of the support I had in facing my recovery. Holding her hand, I asked how she was coping. Despite knowing the worry she felt for me, she smiled, motherly as ever, hiding her pain for my sake. Yet her voice revealed the depth of her fear and concern. I tried to reassure her, though I could feel the weight of her words and her helplessness over the situation. Our conversation shifted to my recovery, and we clung to hope, even in the face of uncertainty. My mom's support was unwavering, her love a beacon of strength. However, Russell's absence since the accident, especially after learning about my paralysis, left a painful void. My mom, just as confused and concerned, promised to reach out to him, her protective instincts kicking in. As sleep started to overtake me, a heavy ache of loss and betrayal settled over me. Russell's brief appearance before the diagnosis and his sudden disappearance afterward left a deep question in my mind: was he really there for me when it mattered most? When I awoke, the sight that greeted me was my mother, her face tense as she spoke sharply into the phone. Her words were clipped and demanding, and though I could barely make out the conversation, I knew she was deeply upset. My head throbbed as the pain meds had worn off, so I quickly called a nurse to help ease the discomfort. Once the fresh dose began to dull the ache, my curiosity got the best of me, and I asked who my mother was speaking to with such fury. At first, she brushed off my question, but I could see the frustration and worry etched in her face. After a bit of coaxing, she revealed that she'd been arguing with Russell, who had been spending most of his time out with friends. My stomach dropped as I realized that, during the 2 weeks I'd been comatose, he'd barely visited me. That knowledge hit harder than any physical pain I'd endured, adding an emotional weight I hadn't anticipated. My mother had finally lost her patience with him. Confronting him for his apparent indifference toward my accident and the trauma I was facing, she had demanded he come to see me within the hour, letting him know that his behavior was unacceptable. She set down an ultimatum, firm and resolute, refusing to let his absence hurt me further. I found the situation both humiliating and, unfortunately, necessary. Russell eventually showed up, accompanied by Lori, which only added to my discomfort. The weight of his absence had already stung deeply, but seeing Lori there felt like a final insult. Sensing the tension, My mom excused herself to give us some privacy. When I confronted Russell about his neglect, Lori was quick to respond, coldly implying that I was now useless to him. She revealed that, while Russell had initially considered staying, she had persuaded him otherwise, citing our prior marital struggles and my inability to contribute financially due to my paralysis as justifications for abandoning our relationship. This revelation was like a blow to the gut, exposing the fragility of our bond and forcing me to confront the harsh reality of my new circumstances. Russell confirmed, in painful clarity, that my paralysis had changed his commitment to the vows we'd once made, to support each other in sickness and in health. His admission, so clearly influenced by Lori's contempt, left me reeling. Lori didn't hesitate to assert that Russell deserved better, reducing my worth to what she saw as my dwindling financial success. Together, they had decided to leave me when I needed them most. Russell announced he would be filing for divorce, and Lori, almost gleeful, had already arranged a date for him shortly after. Their betrayal felt surreal. As they left, leaving me to process the enormity of their abandonment, my mom returned. Her presence was a much-needed comfort as I shared the details of our devastating exchange. Fury filled her eyes. She couldn't have confronted them in time, but her anger radiated as she held me close, a pillar of strength as I cried until sleep finally provided an escape. The arrival of the divorce papers the next day was a painful formality. Signing them, I couldn't help but notice Lori's smug satisfaction and Russell's evident relief, painful reminders of how I had been abandoned at my most vulnerable. The weeks that followed were dark. Depression clung to me, making each day feel gray and lifeless, but my mom was my silent rock, offering comfort through thoughtful gestures, my favorite meals, fresh flowers, small acts that spoke volumes. Her presence was a reminder that, despite my losses, I still had someone who loved me unconditionally. Gradually, her support helped me face each day, even as I began the long process of physical healing and prepared for the journey ahead. Soon after my diagnosis and Russell's departure, I was cleared to begin physical therapy, along with a regimen of medications for managing my paralysis. A skilled physical therapist had been recommended, with sessions starting in a week. I felt defeated and had no motivation to begin, spending days in bed, overwhelmed by sadness. I even missed my first couple of therapy appointments, surrendering to despair, but my mom reached her breaking point, confronting me. She made it clear that she could no longer watch me wallow. When I insisted that I felt defeated, she argued that I had the power to change my situation, at least a little, even a small step, she insisted, was better than remaining in misery. Her words struck a nerve, especially her suggestion that I could still reclaim some control over my life, and, perhaps, even prove Russell and Lori wrong. She reminded me that, while my physical abilities had changed, my mind and spirit were still intact, urging me to channel those strengths. Reluctantly, I agreed to work from home, partly to appease her and partly to distract myself from her unyielding encouragement. To my surprise, this decision became a turning point. I resumed my role in my business, thanks largely to my best friend and business partner, who had kept things running during my absence. Her visits, though infrequent due to her own responsibilities, reminded me of the world outside my isolation. This choice, to begin working again, marked the first step in a long journey of recovery and self-reclamation. My mom's unwavering support and the realization that succumbing to despair would only deepen my pain pushed me forward. Little by little, I found my strength again, knowing that this new path, though difficult, was mine to reclaim. After returning to work and easing the burden on my business partner, I was met with a warm welcome from the team. There was concern in their eyes, but also a clear sense of relief that I was back in action. I reassured them that I was doing well, and before long, I found myself falling back into the rhythm of work. My mom was delighted by this positive shift, knowing how important it was for my recovery. This newfound focus was also reflected in my commitment to physical therapy, where I attended sessions 4 times a week. It was difficult and at times embarrassing, but I was determined to push through. Then, something unexpected reignited my drive, a Facebook post by Russell announcing his remarriage. The post, thinly veiled with a jab at our past, struck a deep chord within me. That moment of anger became the catalyst for a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about recovering anymore. It was about thriving, about surpassing my past achievements. The next 5 years became a relentless pursuit of success. The first 3 were dedicated to reclaiming my ability to walk. I succeeded, using a cane as my companion, but walking on my own again felt like a monumental victory. The subsequent years were focused on growing my business, pushing it to new heights and earning recognition. Each step was a testament to my strength, my resilience, and my refusal to be defined by what had happened to me. Despite my accomplishments, satisfaction still eluded me until a twist of fate gave me an opportunity for retribution. Russell's company had hit a rough patch, and mine was thriving. We were in a position to offer a merger, one that would place us in a dominant position. We negotiated the terms, ensuring that we would hold the power. When the day came for the first post-merger meeting, I walked into Russell's company, cane in hand, but standing tall. The look of shock on his face as he saw me was a quiet, but powerful victory. The pain, the betrayal, the years of hard work, they had led to this moment. This was more than just a personal triumph. It marked a new chapter, not just in my life, but in my career. With confidence in my stride, I made my entrance, the click of my heels echoing through the room. I was no longer the woman Russell had left behind. I was the embodiment of my recovery. I introduced myself as the new CEO, outlining changes to come, including a leaner organizational structure. The message was clear, especially to Russell. He was a prime candidate for dismissal. After the meeting, he confronted me, disbelief written all over his face. He accused me of deceit, of hiding my recovery from him. I calmly explained that his absence had kept him in the dark about the full extent of my recovery, a recovery that had far surpassed his expectations. His suggestion that revenge was my motive was met with indifference. It wasn't about revenge, it was about proving my worth, about showing that my recovery and success were not anchored in the past but were about the future I was building. His plea for professionalism, framed around the impending arrival of his child, struck a chord. It was ironic, considering the same reasons he once used to undermine our relationship were now his justification for needing stability. But the irony didn't change my decision. I informed him that his termination letter was already prepared. His reaction, a mix of shock and indignation, mirrored the abandonment I had felt when I needed him most. As I walked away, leaving him to absorb the consequences of his actions, I felt a surge of empowerment, a stark contrast to the vulnerability I once felt. Later, Lori's desperate attempts to vilify me with calls and messages only reinforced the righteousness of my actions. I reminded her of her role in the unraveling of my marriage and my well-being, and her insults bounced off me. The exchange, though bitter, was a clear reflection of how far I had come, from a place of helplessness to a position of strength. The victory wasn't just in the retribution, it was